Уважаемые коллеги, всех приветствую. Спасибо большое, что вы нашли
Dear
время.
colleagues, it's my pleasure to welcome you. It's nice that you have time to join this meeting. The Public Foundation Kadir Kasiyet is holding consultations with the civil society. I hope you can hear and see me very well. Well, what consultations are these? So they are organized as part of the project by Kadir Kasiyet Public Foundation through the support of UNDEF project on protecting the human rights in Kazakhstan. The project started um, last year, and on the first stage, we trained the chairs of the courts, then monitored the trials in terms of compliance with presumption of innocence in the provinces of Kazakhstan. In January, there was a report which was presented and then uploaded on the Kadir Kasiyet website, and the second was dedicated to the reinforcing of efficient cooperation and communication channels between the Ombudsman and human society. And as part of this stage, we have more than 20 researchers in different provinces of Kazakhstan who are trying to understand as to whether the people are aware of the safeguards for their uh, safeguards, efficient safeguards, and also on the ombudsman's scope of work. In the second part of this event, we are planning consultations like this, and they will have what we call like a working routine. We will try to collect all your insights based on what will be presented today. This will be 3 documents, and they carry more practical experience. And Venera Shaydullina, who is the founder and the expert of our institution, and also we have Tulikan Ismailova. Are you there? Yes, I'm here. Tulikan Ismailova. I'd also like to give the floor for the welcoming remark, because I know that you are very much involved in your communication with Ombudsman in Kyrgyz Republic, and being the consultant and being the member of the Public Assembly, can talk about the opportunities that you have in Kyrgyz Republic, and then you somewhat evaluate what's going on in Kazakhstan and provide your recommendations. Hello, dear all, dear nationals of Kazakhstan, dear experts, dear Anara. It is my great honor to attend this event because the handbook on the human rights, especially for the human rights ombudsman as we call them, is very unique. And you know the history of establishing ombudsman's office in Sweden, where the king was exiled. The ombudsman was assigned with the task to monitor the exercise of human rights. And the concept of ombudsman in post-Soviet countries has the concept which goes to the contrary of the Vienna principles, because ombudsman is the entity which follows, monitors on the exercise of human rights and closely works with the policymakers, including presidents. But we haven't reached that point yet. And I think that the experts will talk about the challenges in Kazakhstan, um, and they will talk about challenges of this concept. And there is always a shift from one status to another. And I really hope that in multi-ethnic Kazakhstan, very beautiful Kazakhstan, you have a really functioning ombudsman institute, and the one that would respond immediately and help address the burning and pressing issues of Kazakh nationals. And monitoring in courts, what Anara was talking about, is the duty of citizens. The more active the people monitor the performance of the courts, if they demand the mandates to be complied with, I think that these principles would help, especially what we call a public control and monitoring and engagement would make it possible for the ombudsman to meet the highest principles um, generally recognized, because this is what every national of Kazakhstan needs. This is in a short introduction. I will talk about what's going on in Kyrgyz Republic a bit later. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Let me remind you, it was Tolikan Ismailova, head of the civil rights movement in Kyrgyz Republic, and she is a member of the public association Kadir Kasiyet. She's a member of the General Assembly, and we relied on the expertise of Tolikan because it is very important to have some comparison or benchmark. So explaining our project, I stopped on three things. So you will receive presentation on three projects, and your opinion, your insights would be very much needed, because this would then be formed in a table, and all the relevant stakeholders and ombudsman will receive a copy so that they know what can be done in order to improve their performance. Today, we would like to discuss on how the ombudsman is performing in Kazakhstan. You know that Kazakhstan has 20 provincial representatives, and they have been in place for the last 18 months in every province of Kazakhstan. I don't know whether you know who they are, but it would be good if you know them in person and communicate with them, talk to them, to ensure that the human rights are exercised and protected effectively. And Ombudsman is the key human rights defender on behalf of the government. And it is important to see the result, the protection of human rights and liberties. How does this look like in foreign countries? We invited Venera Shaydullina. She is the candidate of legal sciences, and she is a lawyer from Moscow, and she was kind enough to present these documents, and this presentation will be followed by some discussions. If you can't ask your question orally, please type them in the chat box, and please put your name, position, and we will make a table to complete it with all your ideas, insights, so that on a yearly basis, Ombudsman knows what to measure in his or her performance. We think that the voice of the civil society should have an impact on the operations and performance of Ombudsman in Kazakhstan. And this is the first ever event of this kind, and every proposal you make will be introduced in the table. I will not keep talking. We will have two more house rules, but I will type them in the chat box. Just in a nutshell, I will let you know that we have practical component of the consultations these days. These are small grants for the civil society entities in the provinces. So if you want to act as a regional representative of Ombudsman, well, a short info I will share with you in the chat, and you will see the scope of activities in the second phase. to which you can apply, and do not hesitate to ask questions. I will try to answer. If you want to listen into English language, please switch to English channel. We made it possible to have records. So press the globe sign and you can switch the language from Russian into English or other way around. Can you hear me? Yes, I can hear you very well. Hello, my name is Venera. Today I'll be presenting our joint project, if I may say so. It is the guidebook on the human rights related action for the High Commission of Human Rights in Kazakhstan. Let me brief you why we need this handbook and how it was produced, what is the content, and you will understand how we assess the performance and how the performance assessment of Ombudsman was established. Let me start with some background information. We know that Ombudsman publishing on its website some reports on the progress so far, what activities have been carried out, some statistics. However, we clearly understand that the laws do not have a definition of this report or it's any evaluation criteria, how to assess as to whether this ombudsman is efficient versus same institute in another country. So we think that this kind of document could be very valuable to improve this institute of ombudsman and achieve the targets indicated in the national laws and international standards. How we produce this handbook? Well, so we analyzed a wide range of best practices, international experience. Best practices is understood by the experience which has demonstrated itself as effective or efficient. So whenever a tool or a safeguard was introduced in some period of time, at some point, this measure was effective, and effective was determined by the fact of protected human rights who appealed to the ombudsman. Also, we analyze the international documents which set the ground for this mechanism, and we analyzed the experience that Kazakhstan has as a retrospective analysis of reports, which you can find uploaded on the Ombudsman's website. I will dwell upon like key recommendations which were formulated in the handbook. There are many. Then I will present. We also focus on the international experience. This is an extract, but if you read the handbook, you will get more details. We also provide more details on the international experience, but I will give you just highlights. So first, we analyzed what are the qualification criteria for the Ombudsman office in Kazakhstan and foreign countries. So we compared, and we have come to conclusion that some countries organize the competition not when someone is nominated for this position, but when there is like a bidding process which raises the transparency of this process. Also, if someone is applying for the ombudsman position, the applicant should not be active civil servant for a certain period of time. Why? Because as this institute is positioning itself as independent, then it should be independent for a specific period of time and for surely prior to taking this position. So this is a criterion which other countries set. Also, there is a requirement for lifelong learning, both for the applicants and for the active ombudsman. So these are pinpointed recommendations proposed to amend the laws and regulations so that to improve the efficiency of this institute. Next section of our handbook is the appeal procedure or grievance procedure. So this is where we analyze the experience of 4 countries, Hungary, Norway, Portugal, and Lithuania. So we analyze their activities, and we found certain safeguards which are used in these countries, and these are proven as efficient, and some of them are well presented in Kazakhstan in the laws, but they are not practiced, and there is also some there are some criterion which are not documented but can be exercised. It's like what is not prohibited is allowed, and there is a range of authorities which could be legislated so that ombudsman could exercise them appropriately. The safeguard in the form of investigation is such a concept which you can find in all the countries with the ombudsman in place. But investigation, like a process, like identifying the reasons for violation, the need to remedy these reasons and implications. So in the substantive law, we don't have this concept in place. Uh, and this is very critical observation. On the rest, safeguards, even though they are not envisaged for, they can be still implemented, like referral to the international organizations. Yes, we have this process, but from the procedural point of view, like filing an appeal to the committee, United Nations committee. So we don't have this yet in place, and this is underused, I would say. From the perspective of this authority to be applicable, we recommend to have this legislated, both from the theory and practice in laws. There are procedures for interviewing, for receiving the visitors, even the equipment and design is clearly explained, like some alarms, some video recording. Well, of course, we cannot be sure as to whether this design is already in place in Kazakhstan, but this could be recommended. Yet another good experience that we can also um, adopt is like having a hotline. Apart from filing written request, the hotline could be an option. It's a special tool for protection, which can also be assessed on an annual basis, like how many calls were received, um, uh, what was the issue in question. Was there any question? Therefore, the measures you can see on the slide, I highlighted them in orange color. This could be introduced into the law. And let's say the application to the Constitutional Court on recognizing certain acts of the state authorities as invalid or unconstitutional could also be recommended for introduction. Procedure of surveillance or examination could also be recommended for the ombudsman's duties. There are certain surveillance procedures which are clearly legislated, and military units or referendum or elections are not included in the scope of work for the ombudsman, whereas in some other countries it is clearly stated in the laws and regulations related to the ombudsman's activities. Well, for instance, there is no clear report on what have been done in terms of restored human rights in order to assess the efficacy of this instrument and in order to carry out subsequent research, this information can be useful. Another pillar is lawmaking. There are certain authorities of ombudsman in terms of lawmaking. Ombudsman may file recommendations or improvements to the laws, but there are certain tools which are not clearly stated, and they are used in just a few cases in terms of promoting international standards and tools, like in Montenegro has a provision which reads that this or this initiatives or draft laws would be initiated by the ombudsman in a given time. I think that this could be also an experience to be adopted in Kazakhstan. For instance, the ratification of the convention, for instance, European Convention on the Protection of Human Rights and main liberties, if ombudsman understands that this can help promote international standards, ombudsman should push things forward. Maybe some other standards or conventions which Kazakhstan may consider. So this should be based on an action plan that would be posted on the website, and the civil society may also be engaged in all these matters. Awareness raising and research work. Well, you can see the tools of educational work. This rarely used or not used at all. For instance, we didn't find information on research and education center establishment or engagement in training sessions in schools or universities. There is little information, but there is no consistent work that we could find in the report. Also, research work. And by the way, when I was preparing to this event, I visited the website and I found that the first research was published on the Ombudsman's website on the domestic violence, if I'm not wrong. And it is recommended to carry out research on very burning and pressing issues. And if any research is carried out, this should be posted, this should be promulgated. Why I'm focusing on this? We had a desktop study which includes consultations with the public at large, and we were stemming from the information that was posted on the Ombudsman website. If something has been done and nothing was reported, then the civil society would never see any value on this, right? So it should be visible. Another pillar is interaction with the authorities, with the government. While a lot of authorities ombudsman has in terms of provisions in the law, but some of them are executed formally or not implemented at all. Like I recommended the authority to submit a complaint to the Constitutional Court on the compliance of certain laws to the Constitution, or establishing working groups for particular issues. So they should be more done more actively, and then any activity should be followed by some press news or press release so that people know what Ombudsman is doing. Also, a submission of opinions to the authorities and judiciary uh, and this also may affect the human rights, and this can have implications on someone's life. Seventh pillar, national preventive mechanism. There are certain authorities which in other countries are recognized a successful experience. This is about organizing a knowledge sharing platform in European countries on the national preventive mechanisms. There are such training sessions which are aiming to share the experience, building the capacity of the NPM members. Well, indeed, this is a very good tool which is enshrined in many countries which have this ombudsman institution. Also, implementation of NPM recommendations. What does this mean? It means that currently on the ombudsman's website in Kazakhstan, they publish reports on the functioning of NPM with some statistics, what violations were identified, how many violations were prevented, and so on. But it is important, as part of drafting reports, to monitor to follow up on the recommendations so that they were fully implemented. And I think that overarching role can be played by ombudsman in this regard as well. Next pillar is the communications with the civil society. The authorities in the laws are very wide that the Ombudsman Institute should cooperate with the civil society. However, all the tools of cooperation are not listed, and accordingly, they can be implemented either formally or be avoided at all. In a number of countries, like in Poland, it treats that the regular meetings with the civil society is the duty of the ombudsman, but not the right. And in many countries of the world, there is a duty of ombudsman to promptly respond to the concerns of the civil society, examine their complaints, support their projects and initiatives which have strategic potential for the country, especially in terms of the human rights protection, organize joint missions as part of the monitoring and surveillance. Also, having a unified monitoring network when the violations is recorded by the civil society, information is submitted to the ombudsman, and the ombudsman responds appropriately. Another is about protecting the civil rights defenders in Mongolia and Georgia. They have separate provisions on this. It is a vulnerable category from the protection point of view because their activities can be exposed to certain risks. That's why it is recommended to legislate these tools, to activate the working groups on the protection of human rights activists that was established in 2022, and also publicize reports on the working group's performance and any progress so far. Next pillar is the cooperation with the mass media. Ombudsman website has the news blog and press center, which publishes a lot of information. However,
Связи с ними нет, не
there is
представлено.
no contact us button. Any information is for your information purposes. And in a number of countries, the Ombudsman's website has the communication strategy, very good experience when you plan your communication with the press on a very high level. Also, there are documents on the communications, and this is not only about commenting on something, but this could be some recommendations for individuals on how to protect their rights, who to go to. So we should inform more people about this Ombudsman Institute so that they know that there is someone who can protect their rights and freedoms. Cooperation with international and regional institutions. Well, there are two authorities which cannot be confirmed in the laws and in the Ombudsman report. It's about alternative report on implementation of international standards or fulfillment of certain recommendations by international organizations. Well, at least these are not published on the website. And then filing complaints to international committees or commissions. So I brought an example of UN committee. So I didn't find information that this is very well exercised, though it's not prohibited. And some countries use this opportunity to the fullest. The next pillar is the network of representatives. It has been stated that Ombudsman has 20 representatives, and based on the best practices, they should perform their duties very effectively in the provinces, but they should be a single network of representatives with both online and offline tools to communicate with each other. For instance, Belgium and Spain have very good experience when they introduced us SRM system on the monitoring and reporting of complaints. And this is good from response point of view and from statistics point of view, like grievance or any information they receive. Also, there are activities like building capacity of these ombudsman representatives, also reports by these representatives, so that to know what was progress achieved so far, what has been covered. Let me explain why. Again, going to visit the Ombudsman website, you can select a specific representative, and there is little information on them. So it's not possible to assess the performance, appraise the performance of these representatives from the civil society point of view. That's why these reports could help to assess the efficiency. Let me repeat, these are not all the recommendations which you can find in the handbook. You can read for yourself in details, and based on the recommendations and based on the best international practices, we produced a form to assess the performance. It is very large. I just highlighted the sections and the columns on the 11 pillars which I presented you a minute ago. There are certain criteria, both from statistical point of view and quality point of view. There are notes to each criterion, how to assess what we should look for. And in our opinion, if the Ombudsman Institute will help fill in this table, we can then properly measure the efficiency of this Ombudsman Institute, both in terms of international standards and national laws and regulations. Well, you can ask questions now. Yes, dear colleagues, there is a good chance to ask question because we have another document that we would like to share with you today, and then proceed with Q&A or discussions. Please, the floor is open. I don't see any questions, but I see Amangilde Isabekov, your raise hand function is enabled. Would you like to take the floor now, please? Well, there is no response. Okay, you can continue, Venera, because we will. Tolikan, please, I see your hand, please. Thank you so much for a very good presentation and information on the scope of activity of Ombudsman. I have a question about Kazakhstan's Ombudsman, about impunity, what we call like system impunity, because it affects the whole picture. One of the mandates for the Ombudsman is to promptly respond and address the concerns of human rights. So, does your Ombudsman Institute respond and take actions? I know there is a forum scheduled, or maybe it has already been held about the family and domestic violence. For instance, in our country, in Kyrgyz Republic, women are murdered regularly. Measures are taken, but they are not sufficient. So you have the court on the death of Sultanat, like in January. Do you feel that some measures have been taken? Do you see any progress? Do you have indicators? Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much for your question. Rather good, and it is aligned with the handbook's content. There is an issue that nobody ever assessed the performance of the institute, Ombudsman Institute, well, at least in Kazakhstan. On January events, Ombudsman has given their opinion on domestic violence, but they are sporadic. There is no system approach. And as there is no performance assessment, which in my opinion, speaking plain language, like on January when so many incidents occurred with the violation of human rights. So I think that this should be the reporting, but if these are just individual cases, we can't understand what was the real assistance provided. That's why we have this handbook with clear instructions so that we know how many incidents happened, how many were investigated, and what was the outcome. And then this could be shared across the government agencies with some explanatory notes. But this should be kind of should be going in parallel with some real feedback, real support and help. And so there are some growth opportunities. Yes, indeed. Thank you so much, Venera, for raising this issue. System-wide analysis and the assessment indicators would help make a difference, and then we should push this strategy forward. So what you are doing now is very unique, very peculiar. And the second thing, Institute of Ombudsman, is it really independent? Is it category B or C? Would you explain these categories? Then they can answer. B, we have category B. Thank you so much. Category B, it means independence is lacking. We know that Ombudsman is doing a lot of work, largely beyond Kazakhstan and international level, so that to reach this level A status, to have higher status? Well, despite it is declared as independent, it is still dependent in the nomination procedure. And from the Kazakhstan's ombudsman perspective, this is the office taken by the former high-level officials, and even this institute is treated as the human rights protection with certain specificity, like on the prosecution side or in court. This could be on the criminal case. So in some countries, it is prohibited to take civil service office to become an ombudsman. It should be otherwise the civil society work. Okay, let's continue with the presentation, and then we will continue the discussion. Okay, what about the rights to effective remedies and how it is related to the ombudsman? As part of the project that Anara was presenting, we had the study on the use of the remedies in Kazakhstan. It's difficult to get any decent statistics or identify certain violations in the institutes which are responsible for protection, because in terms of the challenging question, there is no assessment criteria, and actually there are cases when nobody is reporting on this, and it's like it's not the comprehensive nature, but it shows what challenges we face when they try to exercise the rights for legal remedy. So according to the international standard, the national means to protect the human rights should be accessible and efficient. The signal that something is going wrong with this practice can be confirmed by the fact that the recommendations that UN committees are putting on Kazakhstan are not well implemented. And from the methodology of point of view, I explained that there was a high-level assessment, and in terms of methodology, we used the statistical analysis of applications which are submitted to the human rights institutes. We also found legal regulation-related concerns, and I'm also referring to the monitoring of the court proceedings, overview of the national laws, and recommendations have not been yet uptaken by the government. And also, we were assessing this protection means from the international standards point of view. So it's a bit unclear slide, but let me review. There are series of laws, a series of international law, from which basis this
То есть на институты и на
remedies can be exercised, and we can divide this into institutional level and procedural level. And from the research point of view, it was very interesting to see three institutes: judiciary, excluding constitutional court, but still it is there, ombudsman and a prosecutor's office. Why these have been selected? Well, first, the president of Kazakhstan in his recent address, said that the highest number of complaints fall on the prosecutor's office and the judiciary. And from the previous research, we found that the potential of ombudsman is untapped. Therefore, additional studies could also be carried out. As for the mechanism, so general recommendations were produced to improve this mechanism per se, because there is a lot of international acts dedicated to this topic. We can talk about the definition of the legal remedy, and the government has to study international standards to offer amendments to the laws in a timely manner in compliance with the ratified international agreements that Kazakhstan has. These are mandatory standards for Kazakhstan. It is also necessary on a level of regulations to fulfill the recommendations of UN committees. Maybe we need to make a procedure, explain the responsibility. So this document gives a lot of details how the laws should be made, but the clear statement that the UN committee recommendations should be fulfilled, should be binding for implementation. We also talk about the legal capability or legal capacity, and incapacity or inability to act. And this also relevant in terms of children who are incapable because of their age. This is why, in terms of laws, we talk about linkage to the full capacity. The first institute that we have reviewed is the Constitutional Court of Kazakhstan. There is more statistics and analysis in the report, but for illustration, I put two pie charts, and from the authorities, only 10 appeals were filed in the last year, whereas individuals filed 5,272 complaints. So authorities, i.e. judiciary, prosecutor's office, general prosecutor, to be more correct, and Ombudsman Institute,
фактически не пользуются тем правом, которое
who we
установлено
talk about, they do not exercise their rights of appealing to the Constitutional Court. But their scope of competence in this regard is way too higher versus the general public. In terms of results on the appeals, you can see that 96% of appeals were rejected, and 1 and 3% of appeals resulted in initiation of the procedures. The concern is that people do not understand what could be the reason for them to refer to the Constitutional Court. And based on the experience of Kadir Kassiet, when one of the applications were rejected, like it's not related to the scope of work of the Constitutional Court, it appeals that there is no second chance for an applicant to explain what was the violation, and so they just pushed back this kind of appeals. So it was assessed based on international standards that constitutional court should be effective and independent. We talked about the risk of independence because according to Article 61 of constitutional law, the president of Kazakhstan has a right to influence on the decision of the Constitutional Court. Also, the Constitutional Court may review certain violations, can make the guilty liable. It's not about making someone liable, but it's about adjusting the provisions which are incompatible with the Constitution. Also about the confidentiality from the perspective of the privacy, reviewing the applications without any delays, and in terms of the civic appeals, the decision is made in 3 months. For other subjects like prosecutor, ombudsman, they have 1 month for the review of complaint, and there is some inequality between the government authorities and the general public. So capable of immediate response, the court decisions should be implemented. Well, we cannot say that the acts of the Constitutional Court can have some recommendations on which basis the ruling can be revisited. Duty of care for the prevention, investigation, prosecution, and punishing for the violation of human rights. So on this particular criteria, it's rather difficult to assess. In terms of recommendations, I have listed all them here. As we said, that there are no appeal procedure for certain acts, so you have to call the applicant if there is some questionable reasons. Then we also talk about the timing. There should be equal time frame. We have to remove wordings that have unclear wording like a reasonable time. What is it reasonable? It is also recommended to reconsider the procedure of establishing the Constitutional Court, referring to the combined structure, and also the non-for-profit organizations can file complaints about their members, and the wording is proposed to widen the scope. The judiciary of Kazakhstan, so you can see more statistics here because there are different courts, different categories of cases they examine, and you can see 2 pie charts from the perspective of dividing the first trial court cases, administrative cases. They include certain violations, and which of them were satisfied, like 57%, and the cases dismissed in 43% of cases, more or less equal distribution. As for the distribution of criminal cases, sentenced 79%, dismissed 9, and then referred to the jurisdiction 9%. So in terms of criteria, let me say only on those with a risk of incompliance. In terms of independence, well, this is clearly stated in the constitutional law, and the study offers specific cases, quite a few, about corruption. It is interesting to note that there are reviews on the satisfaction with the judiciary, and 19% of respondents believe that the courts are corrupt. And the number is rather overwhelming. In terms of accessibility, well, there are also limitations on capacity, capability, and the last criteria. The Bureau of National Statistics determined the level of trust in 2023 to the courts of Kazakhstan was 53%. On the number of respondents, so only half believe to courts and 90% believe that the courts are corrupt. In terms of recommendations, we should develop a methodology to assess the performance of the judiciary. So there's only the survey that we have about the level of satisfaction, and statistics is very dry. How many cases were examined, on which category, in which volumes, which were rejected, like a very dry statistics, but there is no real performance assessment. It is recommended to accept this methodology and use it against the judiciary, the courts. Also, the study observed the growth of a number of cases with the involvement of women, and it's about the relevance of our proposal to create the Anti-Discrimination Institute. It could be established as an inter-district court on anti-discrimination. This has been discussed for a while, and in our parallel study, our hypothesis has been confirmed. Let me also stress that the courts, they do not use just few rare cases, and this is official statistics. They do not use international standards, which is not really good, because it appears that the system was introduced. However, the international standards are not followed, or they don't know about the standards, or they do not apply properly. So we need to build capacity on this too. Prosecutor's office. There are statistics on the number of applicants whose rights were protected. Of all the referrals, in 29% of cases, the rights of applicants were protected. In 3%, there were some measures of response, and on the remaining, other actions taken. Other actions would include referral of a complaint. Prosecutor's office, in the opinion of the respondents and a study, are known for are known for the forwarding or transferring of the applications or complaints they receive, and the prosecutor's office are the one that people are unhappy with, along with the Constitutional Court. So this should somehow be improved. And based on the performance assessment, there are risks of violating the risks of independence in case in case of nominating the general prosecutor. Also, there are complaints about the forwarding the complaints to other authorities, and there were attempts to improve it by the Ministry of Justice, but no changes followed. What are the recommendations? To amend the Constitutional Court about publication of reports on the monitoring of the prosecutor's office performance. There is no clear performance assessment criteria. It is necessary to clarify the scope of work for the prosecutor's office, because their function is to protect the human rights and freedoms. Maybe it is necessary to revisit the procedure of nomination of the general prosecutor. Maybe should be like competition based. So we need to rely on the best practices. Also, people cannot have like personal visits to the prosecutor's office, and these requests are rejected usually, and we talk about the prosecutor's office. So we need to build a practice when the personal appointment is personal reception of citizens is well established and practiced. So the Ombudsman on human rights in Kazakhstan. So I will not repeat what has been already said. Let me focus your attention to the left slide. 8% of application were satisfied. On 71%, recommendations were made on the remedy. In 12% of cases, these complaints were sent to other institutes, and 12% remained unclear. So in the report, you don't see these pie charts, but when you produce a chart, you can see that the performance assessment criteria should be developed. Recommendations also resonates with what is written in the handbook. I will not repeat, just to have more time for discussion. And the second level that we studied is some individual procedures and processes. Otherwise, it will take too much time. But there are things that should be properly highlighted in the study. So online procedures, which are often carried out without the defendant, and I can prove it by my own experience, of the experience of Kazakhstan. For instance, for some procedure, the applicant or defendant is, sorry, claimant is not invited. And we see the growing number of online procedures, both on the judiciary and the appeals to the Ministry of Interior. So on a year-by-year basis, we see 50%, like twofold increase. Ombudsman receives a lot of applications from the e-government portal, and the key authority responsible for the protection of human rights. Almost everyone has such a procedure, like having a portal of electronic government or e-Utenish, e-complaint portal. So online procedure is so well established, so we need to have clear distinction. So what is recommended? Ideally, it is necessary to exclude the opportunity of online review. So you can see the names of 4 columns on this table. So how to apply, how to review the application, then sending the feedback online, and appeal procedure. So based on this procedure, we believe that applications or complaints should not be examined online. Online should be just an alternative to the meeting in person, because online resulted in a situation that it's getting too formal. So it was 29% of cases, according to the Ministry of Justice, that it is formal, or the claimant is not notified, or they just write down that the procedure was fulfilled when it was not. So it cannot continue like this. And online procedure should be on an exceptional basis, and then the procedure should be clearly explained in the laws, like how we can ensure that this online procedure is legal. It should be supported by the recording. So the laws and regulations should contain indication on the software, on what about poor internet connection. So this should be clearly governed. It is necessary to make the officer liable for for uh, for negligence in reviewing a complaint. Well, I believe that some progress can be achieved, but yet much needs to be done. There is a feature of the portal that they cannot be like operational without further notice. For instance, there are some maintenance, right, ongoing, but you have just 1 day left for the complaint or for appeal, and your procedural timeline is expiring, and you have a right to submit your complaint in the like 1 day before the expiry, and that's why we need to think carefully. If we push forward online procedures, maybe you should delay the examination until the portal is fully operational. Another block of issues is revision of acts or documents which are adopted well. Undoubtedly, on some of the agencies, they are in place, but in some cases, the act by the Ministry of Interior or the National Security Committee, it's difficult to review their rulings. And there are also decisions by UN committee. There is no chance for reviewing the complaint, so that to make it clear why the right was violated, was it restored or not. And in 30% of decisions are being appealed against, and it is necessary to improve the laws in this respect in order to avoid formality in examination and also revisions or appeals. So from these recommendations, we can identify the most critical that we faced ourselves in practice. For instance, when the administrative arrest was immediately executed against an individual, even though within 24 hours this could be appealed, but the court delays the appeal procedure without having proper evidence or calling the witness, and the appeal procedure is ignored because the person is already arrested. It's already punishment in action, and there is no kind of sense in having this revision. There are cases when the state authorities not only send formal answers, but also they send the offensive or insulting answers. So the state authority should be made liable for such formal and insulting responses to the citizens. There are certain acts that could be appealed against, well, based on the specificity of a particular institute. It may be difficult to implement, but still possible. So there are some practices abroad that can be used. Like as I said, appeal against the ruling by the Constitutional Court or by appeal against the president's decision in the Constitutional Court. So based on the specificity, it would be difficult. However, from the procedural point of view, it is possible. Next is to oblige the superior authority to give the motivated position when action or inaction of akimats or maslahats are appealed. So this recommendation is also proposed. Another block that we reviewed is the right for indemnity. There are tools for full indemnity and compensation in different laws and regulations on international level, but in the laws of Kazakhstan, they are either missing or do not take into account the best practices. For instance, those in place like compensation. It is very strict without considering any harm or damage that the victim incurred, and the compensation fund should be improved so that to take into account the international standards in terms of the damage or loss that the victim has suffered, rehabilitation of the victim. The court follows the laws which are clearly stated in the laws, but there are alternatives which are not legislated but still could be used. Satisfaction. So it is also recommended to take into account the value beyond what is written in the laws for the material indemnity. Also, there are recommendations on the improvement of the laws of Kazakhstan. For instance, the public apology or amend the honorable, even though there is no provision in the law, it is recommended to take this into account for the future. And as part of the Kazakhstan's report, the committee has made a lot of recommendations, and those should be mandated. And if they are failed for implementation, liability should follow. Well, thank you so much, Venera. And I think that it's rather interesting presentation, and we should have a wider picture in order to understand your recommendations. I have a comment on the Constitutional Court of Kazakhstan. Yes, Evgenia Nefedeva. Thank you so much, Venera, for a very detailed presentation, and I would like to thank Anara and Kazakhstan for hosting this event. As for the recommendations made to improve the performance of the Constitutional Court, for instance, on paragraph 2, please go back to the slide just to make it more illustrative, that the Constitutional Court do not have the appeal procedure. Well, I disagree to this statement because, well, first, we have Article 74 of the Constitution of Kazakhstan, which reads about the finality of the decision by the Constitutional Court. Otherwise, we have to amend the laws. And this goes in the contradiction to the nature of the Constitutional Court. They are final and they are binding, not only for state authorities, but also for the judiciary. And the legal position in the documents of the Constitutional Court, they are equal to the provisions of the constitutional law. And based on the international practice, I do not even remember a case like in European constitutional courts or practices of Russian Federation that they have an institute to review the decisions by the Constitutional Court. Paragraph 3, impossibility for the non-for-profit organizations to file a complaint to the Constitutional Court. We have a regulation by the Constitutional Court which grants non-for-profit organizations with a right as an individual or natural person to represent interests and appeal to the Constitutional Court. I disagree with the fact that the legal entities are prohibited from appealing to the Constitutional Court because this violates their right. But non-for-profit organizations representing the natural persons may act as representatives if this is prescribed in the Articles of Association or a charter. I think that it is a provision in the Code of Code of Civil Procedures. We have Article 41 of the Constitutional Law, which reads that parties may submit their evidences and submit the written documents to the supporting documents to the application. I would also disagree with the nomination of the chair of the Constitutional Court. It's about the chair of the Constitutional Court who acts as the kind of director, and this may affect the independence of the judges that this chair has nominated. I would rather change the concept of nominating the chair of the Constitutional Court. A nomination is made by president. I think that it should be judges to select and nominate the chair for the Constitutional Court, so that to ensure impartiality.
Да, можно ответить, да?
That's it for now. Thank you.
Ага.
May I take the
Спасибо
floor,
большое
please?
за ваши комментарии.
Thank you so much for your comment.
Возможно, наверное, на слайде
Well,
сложновато
probably
по некоторым из них расписать.
I should have
Здесь,
made
например,
more
процедура
clear,
апелляции по второму
like appeal
пункту.
procedure on
Речь
paragraph 2.
именно об актах, не которые
It's about
приняты в
acts,
отношении,
not
окончательного да, решения
like
Конституционного суда
final
по тому или иному
decisions by
кейсу,
the Constitutional
речь
Court on a given
об
case, but
отказе
it's about
принятия к производству. Если я не
refusal
ошибаюсь, например, в Кыргызстане такая
to
процедура как раз таки есть. Может быть,
take
Толикан
for
мне
review.
подскажет
Maybe
на
in
примере, она
Kyrgyzstan,
достаточно
Tolikan can comment on this.
эффективно как раз таки в их кейсе сработала по именно
So
вот
this
этому сокращению, как раз
worked
первый раз
very
они
well
брали,
on
да,
the
если я не
appeal
ошибаюсь,
procedure.
да, по-моему, так, Толикан. Был отказ сначала в принятии
So
обращения
they
по закону о некоммерческой организации, потом была подана
had the
апелляционная
law
жалоба.
on the
И
non-for-profit
мнение
organization, and then there was
решение
a
было уже принято после
appeal,
этого.
and then
Это что касается
application
второго
was
предложения. По
accepted. This
третьему
is
вы
for
абсолютно верно сказали,
paragraph
оставлять
2.
некоммерческие
Paragraph
организации
3.
только
Yes,
на
you're
основании,
right
по-моему,
that
членства, если я не
in terms of
ошибаюсь, ходить именно, например,
non-for-profit organizations,
такие общественные объединения,
if you're a
которые я,
member,
например, приведу,
you can
пойдет с индивидуальным каким-то кейсом
submit your
в
concern,
интересах неограниченного
like the public
да, там какой-то системы
foundation
достижения
will
прав и свобод
file a
будет
complaint
выявлено.
about
Так, далее про доказательства. Здесь
concern
в большей степени
that
тоже
touches
опять-таки
upon the limited number
про
of
рекомендации исходить
individuals.
из правовых заключений, которые могут подавать правозащитные институты. В законодательстве
As for
указано
the
право Конституционного суда
laws,
рассматривать такое
they
доказательство, но при этом не указаны
have
обязанности, то есть может
a
не
provision
рассматриваться.
for a right
И
of the
такие
Constitutional
прецеденты, к
Court
сожалению,
to
тоже
consider
были.
or not a particular
И в части смежной
case.
модели согласна, что это
And
такая
in terms of
двойная история.
the
У нас есть
combined
крупный анализ
or
с
mixed
Международного
model, we carefully learned the
суда
experience of other countries on the
в
Constitutional
различных
Court in
мира.
different
Здесь
countries.
это висит
Like,
у нас на сайте как раз
I
таки
think that it is posted on the
И в некоторых
website
случаях
of the
подобная
public
модель производит. Но
association.
опять-таки
And this mixed model is used, but
получается
with a
дискуссию
caveat
нужно
that
обсуждать,
it's arguable, it should be discussed
быть
what
найдено.
is the
Но
best
в большей,
model.
наверное, степени последнее
However,
предложение упор
the
именно
last
как
proposal,
раз-таки
the last
возможность
sentence, with a
влияния
focus
президента в
on
части пересмотра решений, тех, которые уже
president's
готовы или в окончательной редакции. Ну, мы говорим сначала о том, что это невозможно, а в
decision
итоге
to
президент может на это влиять. В общем-то, вот мои комментарии по этой части.
president's impact on the influence on the
Спасибо
decision by
большое.
the
Хотела бы
Supreme Court. So,
что-то сказать.
Tolikan, would you comment on this?
Да, вот очень интересно и важно. Я думаю, лучше вот послушать участников тоже.
Yeah,
Что у каждого
very
есть,
exciting
наверное, ключевые
discussion.
вопросы к
I'm
экспертам.
sure that participants have many more
Вот
questions to
самое
ask,
срочное
but I
меня
just
вызывает
write
закон
down a
про
comment.
бюро
We
по
have signed a law against
обсудить,
NGOs, and I
поэтому
was
ситуация
urgently invited for a meeting.
ну, очень
So
оптимистичный.
it's
Единственное,
a
хочу сказать,
very
что
tricky
ваш
situation,
проект и
but
уникальность проекта в том,
let me say that your
что
project is very
вот
unique,
вы делаете
and
обсуждение, собираете все
you
ключевые,
carry out
инициативы,
discussions,
предложения.
you
Это
put
даст
together
очень
different
хороший
initiatives,
как бы,
which can give
как бы инструменты,
a
да,
very
ключевые
good tool, like
для повышения
key
роли
tool
омбудсмана, для
to
достижения вот
raise the
высоких
role of ombudsman,
стандартов, чтобы
to achieve
омбудсмен был
standards,
независим и
that
очень хорошо
ombudsman
работал
was
во всех регионах
independent
Казахстана.
and could
Нам было очень
protect
важно
individuals
поддержать.
of
Я понимаю
Kazakhstan
вас, я побежала, можно.
Спасибо большое. Единственная просьба
very effectively.
Толикан, поскольку у нас
Many hugs.
есть
I'm
сегодня
excusing
уже
myself
более
as
70
we
человек,
have more than 70
по
participants
самого начала.
from
Что я
the
хотела
very
вас
beginning.
попросить,
Let
я
me
знаю, что едет
ask you a
делегация
favor.
Форум-Эйжа в
I know
Центральную
that
Азию.
Forum Asia
Возможно ли
delegation
было
goes to
бы
Central
сделать
Asia.
отдельную
Would it be
встречу
possible to
после
organize a
ЕНГ,
meeting with them in the very end,
когда они будут здесь, в смысле в Кыргызстане, в
whenever
мае,
they are
в
in
конце
your
июня,
country, in Kyrgyz Republic,
встреча
end of June to have a meeting with the civil society of Kazakhstan because how the civil society operates in other countries of Central Asia very actively together with the civil rights national institutes. It would be interesting to know. So this is a request from me. So if you can help, I know that you are a member of the General Assembly, you're a member of the board of this Forum Asia, so we would like to know more about international experience from different countries of Asia, just to know from them. Would you be able to organize like a 2-hour
Это
meeting?
очень хорошее предложение, Нара.
Seems like a good idea, Nara. We fully support both like partners.
Как партнеры не только вот чисто вот как бы мы как бы работаем в формате солидарности, да. Я думаю, что
So
ваш опыт тоже казахстанский
we
хороший,
work in
который
solidarity, and I think the experience that you had with your experts would be very interesting for our key partners in Asia. So we will try to select the best experience of Asian Ombudsman. So I will send an email and copy you, Anara, and we will include this unique proposal into our agenda. Yeah, thank you so much. I'm sure that the colleagues from the civil society would be very much interested. So thank you so much, Ali Khan, for connecting today just to get to know Anara.
Можно я отвечу Венере еще раз?
May I answer to Venera? Yes, Evgenia, you have 2 minutes. Then we had Usen Suleiman, Galina. So in this order.
Спасибо
Thank you.
большое. Я даже не 2 минуты,
Thank you
на 2
so
минуты
much.
меньше.
Not 2
Всё,
minutes,
Венера ответила. Вот только
but
по
less.
поводу апелляции, если я так понимаю, лицо
So
получило
what
отказ от аппарата
we were
Конституционного
talking
суда, в
about
таком случае просит как раз
appeal.
ввести вот эту
If an
процедуру.
individual
Есть
received
статья
a
в Конституционном законе в пункте 3
rejection
статьи
from the
30
Constitutional Court,
Конституционного закона,
but
то есть лицо, которое получило
a
отказ
person could
аппарата
appeal.
Конституционного суда,
But
может требовать принятия
there is a
Конституционного
procedure.
суда решения
If
по этому вопросу. По закону у нас решением являются и
the
нормативные постановления, и постановления
head office of the Constitutional Court rejected, they may demand from the Constitutional Court to consider a case. This is what I think as a appeal procedure. Thank you so much, Venera. Marat, please, over to you. Then Usian. Usian, please, over to you. Dear participants, a very good conference. I used to work as a Ministry of Foreign Affairs in 2012. I met Evgeny Zhovtis, and we discussed the possibility of establishing the consultative or advisory body on human dimension. So in 2012, we had the first meeting where 8 deputies of parliament and 1 senator with NGOs and other stakeholders like US Embassy, UNDP, USAID, and many others attended. In 10 years, we had 14 meetings and 2 key issues were reviewed. First is the proposal for the to the draft laws of Kazakhstan from the civil society and the compliance of Kazakhstan with international standards and conventions. 268 proposals were made to amend the laws, of which 39 were accepted. Now, leading the head for the prosperity of Kazakh nation, and I have a proposal to the Foreign Office of Kazakhstan that 29 representatives of Ombudsman attend the conference, and the presenters of this meeting would also discuss two things that I shared. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Anara, for your conference. Thank you so much. Marat Japarov, please. Once again, I call upon you. I see your notes in the chat, but you say that you are muted.
Есть включить звук.
In the button, in the bottom, you can see the button unmute.
Так, я не вижу, что вы включили звук. Давайте я сейчас дам
I don't
слово
see you
Замасовой. У вас
unmuting.
звук
I can
звук
give
есть. Вот я даже сейчас нажимаю попросить включить. Может быть, у вас что-то со звуком? Давайте
maybe
Галина
have
предоставляю
issues.
слово. Вы,
I
пожалуйста,
can give the
скажите,
floor now
что
to
звук.
Galina.
Хорошо? Может быть,
Marat, you
другому
please
вам удастся подключиться. Галина,
figure out what's blocking your access to the microphone. Galina, over to you.
Галина, вы могли бы звук тоже включить? Что у вас
Please unmute yourself.
Так, вот сейчас вы включили звук, да? Но что-то я вас не слышу. Нет, нет, вас не слышно. Может быть, у меня под...
We
Да,
can't hear you.
нас блокнули. К сожалению, мы вас не слышим. Вот заново у нас сейчас почему-то... Вот сейчас включен звук. Попробуйте еще раз сказать. Или еще, может быть, с компьютера попробуйте подключиться. Мы обязательно вам слово дадим. Уважаемые коллеги, подскажите, может, у
Dear
меня не
colleagues,
слышно?
Нет, все слышно, надо, возможно, им
no,
зайти,
everything
зайти и зайти, там
is
снова
okay.
можно,
Maybe
там,
she should
там показывает, что
leave the
надо
conference and
включить.
come again.
Да.
Попробуйте выйти и зайти еще раз. И он там пишет, что надо сделать.
Галина, Марат, попробуйте, пожалуйста, выйти и зайти заново.
Galina, Marat, please
Вот коллеги здесь рекомендуют.
leave the conference and
Если у
come
вас есть
again.
еще один девайс какой-то, компьютер или телефон, может быть, с другого.
Maybe you have another device
Так,
you
давайте
can
попробуем
use to enter the
повторно.
conference.
Кто
Okay, let's give the
отвечает, кто
floor
желает? Кто желает?
now
Я видела здесь Алина Смаковая.
for those who can unmute. Alina Smakovaya, please, over to you.
Вы писали здесь, что хотите сказать. Так, не вижу, к сожалению, Алину, и не слышу. Ну, давайте сделаем следующим образом. Если пока у нас нет желающих говорить, то
So let's do
у меня есть как
following
минимум
way.
несколько объявлений.
I have
Ну,
few
во-первых, я хочу поблагодарить
announcements.
Венеру, Толикана
First of all,
за ваши выступления сегодняшние,
I'd like to
презентации.
thank
Вот. И,
Venera and
конечно,
Tolikan
это
for
большое, огромная
your
работа
interventions.
проведена,
Well,
в рамках
indeed,
мероприятий, которые у нас запланированы.
a lot has been done as part of our agenda and more yet to come. And all of them are related to three rights. All these three rights are procedural rights. Therefore, they're very challenging, not easy. First is the presumption of innocence, or the right to the presumption of innocence, then effective legal remedy. Made a reference, we have another public lecture, what this right is all about, what legal remedies are there. We have video records. You can see on the YouTube Dignity 5351. The third right is the right for fair trial. So this is why, along with the civil rights activists, we invited a lot of lawyers, counselors, so that to have a clear picture on this interaction and based on what we propose to amend or upgrade the criteria for measuring the performance on several fronts. First, effective operations of institutions which have the human rights protection as their duty. Next is the efficiency of the institutions, be it activists of religious institutions, civil rights activists, universities, work, public figures, you name it, so which fall under this category. Level of trust, both from the government to people, to civil society, and other way around, how people trust these institutes, civil rights institutes, or who are called to protect the human rights and freedoms. What else we would like to know? How Ombudsman should communicate or interact with the civil society, which means in tools. Another issue that we would like to discuss is how Ombudsman should select the priorities in his operations for this year or next years. Because this is yet unknown, what is the grounds and so on. How Ombudsman should protect the rights and freedoms of individuals so that the society was happy, people would see that there is a progress, their rights are protected, and this civil rights institutes, institute as Ombudsman is very effective. So this is an agenda for now. If you have any insights or proposals, how we can do it, maybe you have things that you learned today or you disagree with in the course of this presentation. So thank you for your questions and comments in the chat box. But we would also like to discuss verbally these things. So I will keep records. Whatever you say, you can take the floor and you volunteer. Yes, Galina, try again. I see you are unmuted, but I don't know why we cannot hear you. No, I cannot hear you. Would you check the sound? Maybe the volume is low.
Уважаемые участники, скажите, если вы слышите Галину, может, я одна не слышу?
Нет, не слышно.
Нет, Галину не слышно.
We cannot hear her.
Галин, вас не слышно. Так, ну я вижу, что ваш коллега тоже подключился, да? Пожалуйста, может
I see your
быть,
colleagues is online. Maybe your colleague can, Marat Japarov.
Так, Зауле Рустемова говорит, хорошо слышно. Зауле, подскажите, пожалуйста, вам слышно Галину, да?
Sound check on Galina.
Мне слышно.
Ну, к сожалению, я не слышу.
Cannot hear.
Так, Марат Джапаров, может, вы попробуете сказать что-то?
Marat Japarov.
Я вот что-то тоже.
меня все хорошо слышно.
I can
Вам
hear
меня
very
слышно
well.
или Галину?
You can hear me or Galina?
Вас слышно, вас.
Ну, мы про Галину сейчас говорим. Так.
Галину нет, не слышно.
Галин, к сожалению, не слышу вас. Вы могли бы, пожалуйста, написать в чат все, что вы скажете? Я
Galina,
озвучу.
would you like to type in the chat
Продолжаем
box
то же самое, да, потому
what you
что
wanted
здесь
to
жадности не слышно.
say?
Уважаемые коллеги, вот сейчас можете брать слово, кто желает задавать вопросы, давать комментарии. Пожалуйста, вот как раз время сейчас для
So,
этого.
dear participants, the floor is open for the discussion, please.
У меня предложение можно, да?
Да-да.
I have a proposal.
Всем здравствуйте. Может быть,
My name is Razia Nurmasheva.
подумала, думаю, может быть, им надо еще как-то
I just
как-то
thought
контролировать регистрацию
maybe we need to
присутствовать в РОВД.
somewhat monitor the registration of arrested individuals.
Например, их часто привозят. И чтобы проверяли время регистрации, время, когда привезли, а потом на
So, to control when the arrested individuals were brought in what time, and then talk to the person in custody, what was treatment to them. Usually, prosecutor is on the side of the squad. Maybe we should somehow like monitor this 48 hours
Спасибо, Разия,
frame.
отобразилось.
Thank you so much, Razia.
Ваши предложения.
Yeah,
Дальше,
I
пожалуйста, можно без разрешения включать
write it
микрофон.
down.
Говорите.
Please, you can freely use your microphones.
Я, в общем, хотела бы сказать о том, что
Жанара Балгабаева, I'm a defense lawyer. So, in terms of proposals on communication with Ombudsman, I have two proposals. In the penitentiary system and after Ombudsman, after the regional Ombudsman knows that, let's say, in the penitentiary, there is a person with disability or people with special needs, these are first degree invalids. So they should focus more on such people. It's a rare occasion to see a person with disability in the prison, but still we need to focus carefully on how their rights are being exercised in the prison. This is first proposal. And I have said in the beginning that we never trusted this institution before, and there were a lot of complaints to the Ombudsman. And once Ombudsman attended the meeting, it's Ombudsman Sultankulov. So there was an issue that was raised to his level, and he could immediately react to this. It was a very good case. Another intervention, like complaints or allegations about cruel, inhumane treatment, this should be carefully followed on. I think that Ombudsman should be aware of this and respond accordingly. I have a complaint from Karaganda province. So the prisoner in Ulutau, and there was a complaint about cruel treatment, and the progress is very low. And we know there was no response from the Ombudsman, and it was rather difficult for us to know who was Ombudsman in this province. So we didn't know who to communicate with. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I would like to thank you for inviting me to this platform where we can share our concerns.
Жанара, подскажите, вам неизвестен представитель омбудсмана по Улытау или...
Жанара, you don't know your Ombudsman representative in Ulutau or Karaganda? Well, we do know representative Ombudsman in Karaganda province because the motion was filed in Karaganda, but about events in Ulutau. And who is going to cover this issue? Is it Ombudsman of Ulutau or Ombudsman of Karaganda? I would suggest Ombudsman of Karaganda province. So can we have contact details? Okay, Tleshev Azamat Nigmetolaevich, and I will share his contact details, and I will inform him of this issue. Mr. Tleshev, thank you so much. Thank you so much. I don't think he would mind. I'm sure that he would respond accordingly. Thank you so much. So this is for Karaganda province. Okay, Marat Japarov, let's try again. Marat, would you please unmute yourself? Thank you, Janara.
Благодарю. Марат, звук включите, пожалуйста. Вот я тут даже кнопочку нажимаю, попросить включить. Но что-то вижу, что у вас поднята рука, но вы не
I
включаете.
see your hand raised, but you
Оказывается,
cannot
у вас там в Талгаре.
unmute yourself.
Не могу, пишет. Давайте тогда напишите, пожалуйста,
Okay,
фаворит.
let's
Я буду озвучивать.
write
В
your
чат напишите.
concern in your
Разита
chat box, and I'll read
подняла руку, пожалуйста.
Razita Pagaдаeva, please. May I stay with my camera off? I work with Ombudsman on East Kazakhstan, Mr. Serik, in the interest of Tajik citizen after he was sentenced and there was no deportation. But under a civil court, he was expelled. We carefully learned the laws on CIS on this issue, and we found that it's only missing in Kazakhstan. So we produced a complaint, which is now pending, and I would like to thank this ombudsman for East Kazakhstan because he was so helpful. So in terms of foreign nationals, it is possible to get support from the ombudsman. Only ombudsman can help in addressing these issues according to the laws and regulations of Kazakhstan. I would also like to thank Anara. You are doing very good work, and there are a lot of situations when an individual or a national cannot apply, but ombudsman has wider opportunities. It's not like a question, it's just for your information. Thank you so much. Very interesting to know this. And by the way, we have a representative of Ombudsman in Almaty, Kazbek. So he was kindly invited because he was interested. So there is nothing to hide. He can also ask questions or comment, please. Any more volunteers? Bahajan Tarigozhina, can you hear me? Yes, please.
Бахаджан, звук что-то отключился у вас.
And now you're muted.
Да, да.
Can you hear me now? Yes. So thank you so much for inviting me to this very important discussion. We have extensive experience with Ombudsman, like with Elmira Abulkasimovna and Mr. Rastaev. And the presentation today, I did not get about recommendations. So it will be a document by Kadir Kasiyet to inform the Ombudsman Institute or what? So what form these recommendations will have? I was carefully listening, and the document is very detailed. We could easily see what are the painful spots. It would be great if these recommendations are fulfilled because there are so many recommendations that the government agencies receive, but they ignore. And there is a new staff. So we had lawyers before with the Elvira Ombudsman. Now with Mr. Lastaev, it's not clear who is going to be the staff, and they don't understand how the civil rights activism works. They do not even understand why and what they are doing. We sometimes receive insulting feedback. They just refer us to another agency, and this results in a very bad mood. And when President Tokayev made it clear that the human rights is a focus in Kazakhstan, and having the former prosecutor as ombudsman resulted in a very pessimistic mood. But we try to be optimistic, and I can say for sure that after Kantar events, after January events, the situation was so bad, but Mr. Lastayev in Vienna promised that there will be a proper investigation and all the rights will be reinstated, and they just issued a press release with all these promises, but nothing has been done, anything else. And in Geneva, Mr. Lastayev will again present a report by the former ombudsman, Mr. Azimova, but he is really doing nothing. So thank you so much, Anara, for raising these concerns, for having a very So we keep working. We still look forward for any improvements. So we have to move on. I would like to wish you best of luck and good success in your work. Thank you so much, Bahadjan. So you had a question like why we were doing all this, if I understand correctly. So there are 3 steps that we plan. So report that we discussed today, well, at least in a nutshell, we are planning to submit it after your comments, your feedback, your insights. It will be discussed widely in the conference that we plan end of April, early May. After this discussion, we send to the state authorities, to mass media, international organizations, diplomatic missions. So this report would be circulated, and this document, this report can be used for any betterment. And the 3rd step is cooperation with the Ombudsman and other government agencies to fulfill these recommendations. Last is the monitoring of this recommendations implementation. And in the provinces, in Almaty, in Chimkent, we may try to help regional representatives of Ombudsman, understanding that to date, the legislation does not allow to have independent civil rights activists. So they were made a lot of proposals, not former officials, not former civil servants, but this is written in the law. We have to do something prior to that, and we should make small steps and have low-hanging fruits first. If you are interested as part of our project, then we can support. It's about small money, like 500 USD, but you can do something, well, at least to start doing something with this small money. As part of the 3 rights we're focusing, this is presumption of innocence. Other way, it's fighting against torture, access to court. It could be a lecture or some leaflets or some advocacy, any study or research, so anything that you can think of, and work together with one representative of Ombudsman or all of the. Hello. Yes, please think over your proposals. Marat, thank you so much. Dear participants, can you hear me? Yes, let's give Marat the floor. Yes, finally we can hear you.
Так, Марат, да, говорит? Кто говорит? Скажите, пожалуйста. А кто говорит? Скажите, пожалуйста, назовите себя.
Здравствуйте.
Здравствуйте.
Introduce yourself. Hello. Hi. My name is Marat Japarov. So, look, if I understand, we talk about the human rights. So, Marat Japarov, I'm from Talgar. So, I'm a person with disability of first degree. So, since recently, I have been writing all the complaints about human rights in Kazakhstan. I was asking for help, but I received a lot of rejection or refusals with mere excuses like under this laws. And through EUTNISH software, I managed to get some meetings with the president's office, with vice ministers, and I have one concern. How these civil rights institutes work with the government agencies under EUTNISH. For instance, I did not receive any proper assistance from the government authority. What actions I can take through these civil rights institutions? Is it all you ask about, or you want to say something else? No, I just wanted to know this. I see bureaucracy. I see bureaucracy with state authorities and also with some public associations or foundations, and they reply with no real answer. So, for instance, I wrote to the Committee for Human Rights, but no feedback. And in 3 months, I managed to address this issue myself, and it appears that they are incompetent in these things. Did you get my answer? May I ask a person with disability who is civil rights activist and who is trying to protect his rights to answer your question? Musa Galidawulov, please. Hello. Marat, I may try to answer your question because I also encounter so much bureaucracy in my life. It's bureaucracy driven by digitalization, like Human Rights Ombudsman and representative of Ombudsman in Aktyubinsk province. So we tried to talk to him via EUTNISH, but there was a personal meeting. So everything is done through the National Center for Human Rights. So we cannot talk to them directly. And if an individual gives you a reply with no real answer, using the code of civil procedure, you can appeal against this reply, and based on this code, you can make them administratively liable. So they do not have any personal liability, but we can make them liable. No, I wrote so many answers to bureau, but in 3 months I managed to get the result through the Office of President. I made so many complaints, and only in 3 months I get the answer to my question. So we have people in the Human Rights Bureau, and they are all people, right? We are so many people like myself. We write letters to United Nations, but they do not respond, right? And through the government, I can get answer, let's say, in 2 months, but I never receive any feedback from the civil rights institutes. We have only one representative from the city of Almaty. We did not invite the ombudsman representatives. These are all our colleagues representing the civil society, and they are all human rights, civil rights activists. I wrote down your question in the chat box. Well, in the law, we have certain legal mechanisms. They cannot satisfy all our grieves and concerns. I also complained to different authorities. And why we decided to have this discussion today? In order to make a difference. Anything you say, bureaucracy, yes, we cannot protect the rights all the time. Even if you win your case in UN committee, and I have 10 decisions in the favor of person with disability, a terrorist, a person who died from tortures against journalists. So we have a lot of won cases, but even these are won cases. They are still not resolved properly, and I think that only together through joint efforts we can make a difference. Bahajan has more than 100 complaints, and she has many more won cases, and she is um, focusing on the freedom of peaceful assembly and associations. It is important to support each other, have networking opportunities where it is possible or where it is more efficient to protect ourselves or protect rights of other individuals. But still, I would urge you, Marat, would you please describe a case when you received a runaround? Runaround, it should be like a very clear case. And we try to publish because you are a person with disability and you are vulnerable and you are a civil rights activist. So if you need any assistance from the councils, this assistance will be paid so that you have a professional lawyer that would help you. Okay? Agreed? I need a very specific description of a case, why and when, and what for. And this is how we can proceed because you just making allegations. No, not now. So that the meeting was very productive. So we will refer your case to Ombudsman. I can email to you, just read my case, and then I reached the president's office. I was writing about these public councils. So we have Zauria. She's very good. It's an NGO to parliamentarians. And after her speech, I feel that people really care. And civil society is a bureaucracy. It could be a janitor or a nurse or a teacher. Our society is very diverse. But in order to make a step, we have NGO, we have yourself. So we need to urge people. If you want to say something, just speak out. Only then you can see change. Okay, let me email you my story, and I'm ready for cooperation because I have many things I made a lot of complaints about deputies of the parliament. So they come to a place, ask for complaints. They collected around 800 complaints and nothing followed. They just disappear, they just vanish. And I would like to thank Nazat Kaltaeva and Vice Minister Nazgul, who is taking mission to UN with for the rights of people with disabilities. So I was asking, find me a job. I'm a person with disability first degree, and I was asking for 6 months, and I received so many runarounds. I have many stories to tell you. I will email you. Thank you so much. I'd like to welcome you from Talgar. So we want our voices heard, not only in Talgar, but everywhere. Thank you so much.
Вы молодец, что
Thank you so much, Marat. You are
правозащитный
good
орган.
boy
Пожалуйста,
working in a
подавайте свои материалы у Галины
civil
Юрьевны
rights
Галиной. Мы
domain.
можем специально
Please
организовать
email me.
встречи отдельно и оказывать друг другу тоже помощь. Но,
We can
пожалуйста,
support each other,
что
but please
именно сейчас есть возможность
note
дать
that
рекомендации о том,
we have a good chance to recommend
представителями работать. Если
Ombudsman
бюрократия, то
how they can work better
он должен
with
приехать
their
к вам,
representatives.
если вы не можете
Uh,
приехать как лицо
for
инвалид с
instance,
инвалидностью.
missions. For instance, if you are a person with disability, you can travel long distance to meet Ombudsman, or you need to call from him. So these are the clear steps, because sometimes Ombudsman does not understand that
конкретные барьеры, да?
like there are
Потому что
specific
это
barriers
возможно
that you
только
face.
тогда, когда ты окажешься в инвалидном кресле. Вот я
You can understand only when you
в
are, let's say, in a wheelchair.
нога. Я не могла в поликлинику заехать на инвалидной коляске. Мне это
I
так
had an
трудно
issue with
было.
my
Было два
foot,
человека быть, чтобы
and
коляску протолкнуть, потому что там
and I had to visit a doctor,
тогда
and
я
there were no ramp for me,
что я работала
and I should be
что я буду прям
escorted by 2 people at least in order to
этой возможностью,
see a doctor.
пока ты
And I thought that I will
окажешься
reach
здоровый
to
человек,
the
никогда не поймет лицо с инвалидностью. Он будет сочувствовать, где-то там все переживать, но никогда в жизни не поймет. Поэтому давайте вот
you can
формулируем
never
конкретный
understand a
список, кто
person
должен
unless you are in his or
участвовать
her
с
shoes.
инвалидностью при
So, in order to
с его представителями. Пропишем
make it clear
разделы,
for ombudsman and representative what should be the algorithm of action for the for the person with disability, just write down. Yes, what measures will be taken? And Vice Minister Nazgul Yerikovna, I have a video record. I will share the link with you. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Так, я вижу, что у нас руку поднимает.
I see Mayra Ambenova. Hello, dear colleagues. It is my pleasure to see familiar faces. I'd like to thank Anara for this meeting. I have a lot of information. Well, my name is Mayra Abenova, Public Foundation. The sound is very low. So with the human rights ombudsman, was the first one, by Kadamov, I met immediately after his nomination. So this is a story. It is end of 90s. And I thought that this person representing the human rights, and I thought that this person would protect us, Mr. Baykadamov. And more than 10 years passed. And point is that we can say nice things, but the reality is different. And the report that you presented today is illustrating that we are far from reaching some European standards. So we seem to be far away from knowing the laws that can protect our rights properly. So until still yet much needs to be done. I would really appreciate if you can share the reports and the findings of your study so that to help you with some insights and proposals. As for the regional representatives of the Ombudsman, I met one just recently. I met with the Ombudsman representative for East Kazakhstan and Abay provinces. And now it gave me food for thought. I have a proposal. For the last 2 years, I have been promoting rights of the victims of the семей testing station. So millions of people suffered from nuclear tests, and we still have the consequences. And UN General Assembly issue a lot of resolutions, and I think that it is necessary to follow and monitor how these resolutions are implemented. Unfortunately, the sound is very low. So people who left from the region, they are not considered anymore like victims of this nuclear test, and their rights are violated. And I would like to offer my services as a lawyer, even in 2 provinces, Pavlodar and Karaganda. So we can take the violation of rights of victims of nuclear tests. I think that we need to have a project on legal literacy, so we are pending a contract award. So I'm sure that this contract would help us to address the rights of people who suffered from this nuclear testing. So, against all odds, we keep working. We're so few, but we keep working. Thank you so much. I think that we need to build the capacity of people so that they know their rights, what they're entitled to. Thank you again for this opportunity. Thank you, Anara. Thank you so much, Mayra. Well, thank you for sharing your willingness to work with the regional representatives of Ombudsman. So I wrote this down and looking forward to your proposals, how and what are the methods for the Ombudsman to work with the representatives of Ombudsman. Yes, we will share the information.
Ага. Если кто-то не прочел в чате, я тогда повторюсь, что
So
что
if you do not read
в режиме
in the
проекта,
chat,
да,
these
документации, это не
documents are
распространяться
still
нельзя.
in the draft version. Please do not circulate them. Do not post anywhere. This is a working version. And after all your proposals are elaborated, the project will be, the document will be refined and then presented for circulation and to the consideration of government agencies. So we want opinions of everyone volunteering be incorporated. I'm not sure that all of you could raise their voices. I see Fedor Pavlovsky unmuting himself. Do you want to say something? Please, the floor is open.
Так, Федор, вы хотите что-то сказать? Нет, ага. Тогда я вот выключу ваш звук. Спасибо.
So I will mute you because you're not
включен
speaking.
ваш
Galina,
звук?
could you unmute yourself?
Нет, наверное, тоже, да? Ну ладно. Тогда
Okay, then.
еще раз вот эти объявления давайте, если у кого-то
Just
что-то есть, кто не успел сказать, тоже
short
можете
announcements,
сделать.
short interventions. The floor is still
Первое
open.
объявление о том, что мы планируем
First announcement.
и
So we plan to
собрать
convene
мнение, кто
to
желает,
collect all your
и
opinions, all
рекомендации
your
в эту
like
табличку.
sentiments, and then
Табличка, она будет
recommendations
параллельно
into the
с
table.
докладом,
This table will be in parallel with the handbook, with the report and the assessment form on the performance of the ombudsmans, which we plan to carry out on an annual basis to our Human Rights Commissioner, just to make it open and public, and everyone can comment like this is done good, this is not so good, make some improvements, so that everyone's voice is heard. So this table will be
включительно имеется в виду рабочий. Я думаю, дня 3 вам хватит на то, что, ну, если кому-то не хватит, напишите чуть больше.
edited after you put forward all the proposals until like Friday. We still have 3 days. So also we have announced, we just doing it, announcing a call for your ideas or insights which you would like to offer to Ombudsman in your particular like province or region, starting the first step. So what would you like to talk about with the Ombudsman's representative? What initiative you have that you would like to implement? So the deadline for this is 20th of April. So there will be another post shared on Dignity 5351 account about the procedure and deadline. So if you're not signed up, please do so if you're interested. Announcement 3, it's about the social poll, social survey that we carry out in addition to the study on the accessibility and efficiency of the legal remedies. So what we would like you to do, to the extent possible, please help in this survey. Please do it yourself and help people you know to have it, because there is a big part which is dedicated. The objective is about informing. You can see the clear functions and objectives of the Ombudsman and representatives. And through this poll, we would like to know more. So it is available in Russian and Kazakh. I will share the links also in the chat box and in your emails. And the deadline is 20th of April. So waiting for these questionnaires to be completed in the online format in order to supplement through the empirical base the research that was presented to you today. And I think that some of you may be interested in some elements of the right to legal remedy, and then this can give some insights how to help representatives of Ombudsman on the grounds to address small issue that you have in your scope of work. This could be the human rights defenders, maybe journalists related issues or lasting concerns. And taking this particular case, you can take it into a case study, like an algorithm of protecting a special vulnerable group. How you do it? It could be somewhat a project, small-scale project, so we're waiting kind of your project proposals till 20th of April. If you are interested, I can show you on the slide, and if you have questions, this activity on your screen, please pay attention to a stage related to Ombudsman. It's stage 2 in our project. So we plan to have meeting with the Ombudsman office, and you will be kindly invited. So this will be consultations, training. So we'll have 4 two-day training sessions where the civil rights, civil society and representatives of the Ombudsman office can train together. It will be online training. Also, we plan to hold a hackathon. It is a forum for designers of effective means of communication of the civil society with the Ombudsman. This is planned for August. And this small grant project, it's about provincial ombudsman communication with the civil society in terms of building effective communication, because let me say straightforward, we talked about bureaucracy, we talked a lot about the composition of ombudsman, what's their background, if they know anything about the human rights and how to protect. But the point is that people want to work, and in many cases, there are like changes for the better. So in order to establish this work properly, maybe there is a shorter and more efficient way of communication channels and protecting human rights. Let's try together, everyone in their own shoes, offer something and do something. This is a rather short-term initiative. It's just the first step, but we want to try to help through joint efforts of Ombudsman, yourself, and us, so that we could witness ourselves that it's quite possible to work effectively, and I'm sure we can work it out. Apart from that, in the same period, we can also propose criteria for assessing the cooperation level of trust and propose annual assessment. So the conference or a dialogue for human rights, as we call it, will be planned end of April, early May, if it works. Another document would be proposed. It's a roadmap to implement the recommendations of the report. It will be a formalized document with the responsible persons' deadlines, activities. So, dear colleagues, if you have questions on this stage of the project, we're open for your questions.
Или насколько вам нужно или не нужно
You can
участвовать.
express your opinion
тоже были бы рады услышать.
About the training opportunities and attending the
Может быть,
conference.
кто-то из вас хотел бы
Да,
какую-то часть совместно
да,
провести? Да, пожалуйста.
Please.
да, это Бахаджан. Я как
Э,
раз хотела сказать,
It is me, Bahadjan.
что как раз таки представители на местах, они вообще как бы не
So,
самостоятельно принятие решения. Например, вот вы сказали, что
Ombudsman on the ground
на
is
местах. Я, например, очень остро нуждаюсь в том, что нам нужны
not
наблюдатели,
independent in
которые
decision-making
именно
process.
делают именно
So
независимым
we need
наблюдателем
observers in the course of the peaceful
конечно,
protests.
принять
So they
решения.
should be independent
Но я
observers,
не
including
привлечь
observers in the court.
представителя
But for me, in order
омбудсмана
to
города Алматы,
engage the ombudsman for Almaty city or Taldykurgan
если даже я их
city,
попрошу, я что-то
even if I
очень
ask them,
боюсь, что
I
они
have
изъявят желание и
serious doubts
скажут, давайте,
that they would
давайте, и мы,
express
конечно,
their
согласимся со
willingness
страной,
to
и
go forward. They have to agree this
государственным
with the
печатным
headquarters,
центром,
and they
центром
will most likely
что-то в
ask me
этом роде.
to write a
Поэтому
letter to the
тут
headquarters,
как раз
and
очень так,
if
чтобы
I'm
человек не
authorized,
этому опыту
if
и
there is no objection from the headquarters, I can do something. So
как
let's
говорится,
try
сидеть
to check
без установки от руководства ничего не делаю, да, и
the
потом
grounds that they are
омбудсмана
not
какими-то своими предложениями, чтобы они там
tied
продвигались сверху вниз. Ну вот
with
я
the
уверена, что
past like
ни
officials,
ни
but I think that
государственные суды
neither
никогда
peaceful
не
assemblies nor courts,
Спасибо.
they
Хорошо.
will never go there.
Давайте всё-таки
Thank you so much,
сделаем
Bahidjan.
первый шаг, а дальше
Let's
уже
try
будем
to make
видеть
this step,
результаты. Я
and then we can
уверена,
see
что
the
будет
results.
какое-то
I'm
продвижение
sure
движения.
that there would be
По
some
крайней мере,
movement.
можно
Well,
ориентироваться на
at
опыт
least we can
наших
be
соседей.
guided by the experience of
На
our neighbors,
постоянной основе
Uzbekistan.
мониторинг
So on a permanent basis, they have the monitoring of the court proceedings. Well, at least representatives of the ombudsman, they monitor the court sittings, monitoring of peaceful assembly. A lot of things is done in foreign countries. It's also an experience for ombudsman, and there is no experience of local ombudsman, and nothing impedes us from making this proposal to them. If you think it is necessary, we can try, we can help. Well, I have many things to propose, like on political prosecution, prosecution for political reasons of January events. We can start with small things like monitoring, taking into account they don't do anything or do something that we are not aware. Yes, of course, I would like to wish best of luck. Okay, agreed. I think that we would be looking forward to your proposals, Bahidjan. It could be one page, like half page, but proposals that you would like to really see implemented in this region, in this date. Let's go for it. And this would be formalized and will be submitted officially as a result of these consultations. So we will be sending for approval and indicate the timing for the joint projects. Let's try, but disappointment devastates. Okay, let's not be disappointed. We are the civil rights activists. Even disappointment should push us forward. So there should be certain confidence. Okay, dear colleagues, do you have anything to talk about? Questions on this slide? I don't see. I see Musagali, please.
Меня слышно?
Yes, I can
А у
hear you.
меня по прежнему этому
I have a
предложение было
have
насчет
a
этого,
proposal
участия в
on the
проекте.
previous
Я не против,
about
вы
joining the
знаете меня,
project.
да?
I don't mind. You know me
Вот,
very
и по
well.
поводу этого проведенного исследования я хотел сказать,
And
что
as for the
я тот
study
человек,
that you
который
presented,
принимал в этом исследовании
yes,
участие
I
обязательно,
participated in
работаю
the
со своей стороны.
study, and I also analyze the laws and regulations. I received training in the civil rights activist school. So if there is any proposal from the state authorities, you're more than welcome to share them with me. So representatives of Public Association Kadir Kassiet have my contact details, and they are the ones who I work with on a daily basis to address concerns of people with disabilities. Thank you so much, Musagali. You are that resource person that can serve as a bridge for other colleagues in the provinces who also cover the agenda of people with disabilities. Just to demonstrate what was your journey over the past 2 years to become an expert who gives advices to the ministries and Ministry of Digitalization is testing the accessibility of information to people with disabilities in the Kazakh language. So this is a very good positive experience. So your litigations on a strategic level can help move things forward. Thank you so much, Musagali, for your readiness support. You can even look for a partner in Almaty province. We had we had Marat Japarov. I think that you should work together to raise your voices harder and start taking small steps and then go up to the government level. Maybe you can offer something to Marat, or Marat can give you a proposal, an idea. Thank you so much. Okay, do you have any more like questions, issues, ideas? The floor is still open. I don't see any hands raised. Well, then thank you so much for your attention, for your active participation. As I said, we will circulate all these materials with and wait to the deadline. So end of this week till 5th of April. We're looking forward for your proposals. What is your perception of Ombudsman's office? What is their scope of work? How they should work with the civil society? How to protect the human rights? Because the first document that Venera was presenting today is a handbook what is the Ombudsman's responsibilities and duties? What is missing? What should be added? Also, we are waiting for your feedback to the survey that we carry out. So I will share the links in the chat box and looking forward for your project proposals. When and why you would like to communicate with the Ombudsman representatives in the provinces, on the ground, and thus proving the efficiency of the Ombudsman through proper communication. If you have any questions, you wanted to say something, the floor is still open. It's just the right time. I would ask my colleagues to double check that we have chat saved in the records, make the screenshots so that no proposal is wasted. We will check what the challenges we had in the recordings. If there is nothing about personal data or some privacy issue or still some open things, the record would be uploaded in YouTube just to share that we had this meeting in a line format. So you will be invited to the upcoming events, and we will be asking for your advice in the course of programming. So end of April, early May, we will have a conference. I see Alexander Mucha online. Would you please share your experience? I know that you agreed with the regional ombudsman representative about some board or council for children's rights. Would you please share? No, I never disconnected. I was carefully listening from the very beginning. Well, we still have negotiations on the 9th of April. We are going to meet on the draft law. We can share some news, but still it is in consideration. So it's all for now. Thank you. I hope I didn't miss anybody in my list, please. Well, okay then. I would like to thank our interpreter, Jana Ustimirova. Thank you so much indeed for your interpretation into English for UN's Democracy Fund. So the translation is recorded into English. Please double check the records that we have everything in place. Maybe we can get the feedback from UN Democracy Fund, UNDEF, because we discussed these things from the legal perspective and support of the government in protecting the human rights. So we're looking forward for very positive outcomes. So we used to work for best result that we can achieve that would be useful to all of you. Would like to thank you, even though we are 40, not 70 or 80 as we were in the very beginning, but still it's a rather big number of participants. You heard what we were talking about today. Somebody could voice their concerns, and if you still wish, you can send your proposals by the end of the week. So what is your perception of the ombudsman's work? What criteria, what measures to assess the performance, how to protect the human rights in Kazakhstan? If we don't speak out now, we can fail constructive discussion. So this is the right time to hear your concerns. If you think that 3 days is not enough, you can ask for prolongation. Okay, best of luck. Let's stay in touch. Bye-bye. Thank you for a very good lecture. I find it very relevant.